I never imagined the worst day of my life could get even worse. After my grandmother's death, I felt a loneliness so profound it seemed to hollow me out from the inside, and the small life growing in my belly wasn't enough to fill that emptiness. Standing at the reception desk of the funeral home, I faced a manager in a crisp suit who looked at me like I was a lost child who'd wandered into the wrong building. "Sir, are you pregnant?" he asked, gesturing toward my swollen belly, his face showing no respect, only judgment. I adjusted my scarf and replied, "Yes, and I'm here to arrange my grandmother's funeral." His laugh felt like a knife to my chest. "Arrangements? Do you even have the budget for our services? This isn't some middle-class setup, sweetheart." I pulled documents from my purse, but he barely glanced at them. I lacked the alpha hormones that commanded immediate respect, and my pregnancy made everyone see me as weak and incapable. Tears welled in my eyes, but I forced them back. My grandmother had never let me give up, and I wouldn't dishonor her memory by breaking down now. "Please, I just want to give my grandmother a proper goodbye," I said, my voice trembling but determined. The manager looked at me once more, then murmured something to his assistant that I couldn't hear. They placed a cheap-looking brochure in front of me with "economy package" printed across the top, as if I were shopping for groceries instead of honoring someone I loved. "This should work best for you," he said in a cold tone. Suddenly, I heard the heavy wooden door of the office swing open. Everyone turned. A tall, broad-shouldered alpha entered, and his presence was so commanding it felt like the entire room shifted to accommodate him. His sharp jawline, cold gray eyes, and perfectly tailored black suit made him look both dangerous and untouchable. His footsteps echoed against the marble floor with an authority that made my heart skip. His gaze landed directly on me. My breath caught in my throat. "What's going on here?" His voice was deep and commanding, the kind that could stop anyone in their tracks. The manager's entire demeanor changed instantly. "Mr. Matthias." "Sir, this is just a misunderstanding." "Matthias." So this was him. I'd heard the name before. Matthias Hale, the most powerful and ruthless alpha billionaire in the state. He owned the largest funeral industry empire, and now he stood right in front of me. He didn't even glance at the manager. His eyes stayed on me, on my pregnant belly, then back to my face. For the first time, I saw respect in an alpha's eyes instead of pity or disgust. "You," he said to me, "come with me." I followed Matthias down a quiet hallway, my heart pounding so loudly I was certain he could hear it. The marble floors gave way to soft carpet, and elegant artwork lined the walls. This area was clearly reserved for VIP clients. He opened a heavy oak door and led me into his private office, a space that felt entirely different from the cold reception area. Here, no one was judging me. Here, it was just me and this alpha I couldn't understand. He walked behind his chair and gestured for me to sit, but his eyes remained fixed on me, analyzing, understanding. "What's your name?" he asked, and surprisingly his voice had lost its earlier coldness. There was a softness to it that I hadn't heard before. "Casey," I managed, trying to keep my voice steady. "Casey Rivers." "Casey," he repeated, as if tasting my name. Then he leaned forward slightly. "What was your grandmother's name?" "Margaret Rivers," I said, and just saying her name brought tears to my eyes again. She was the only person I had left. And now, I couldn't finish. The emotions overwhelmed me again. I was pregnant, hormonal, and now grief had been added to the mix. Handling all of this was difficult, especially when I had no one to lean on. Matthias picked up a tissue box from his desk and slid it toward me. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. I took a tissue and wiped my tears, feeling embarrassed that I was breaking down in front of a stranger. "Who told you that you couldn't afford our services?" he asked. And now there was anger in his voice, but not directed at me. It was aimed at the manager. "At the reception desk, the manager, Davis," I said, remembering his name. Matthias picked up his phone and dialed a number. "Fire Davis, right now. I won't tolerate anyone disrespecting my clients," he said to whoever was on the other end, his voice carrying absolute authority. "And remind the rest of the staff, every person deserves respect, regardless of their financial status." My mouth fell open. He just fired that manager? For me? For a complete stranger? He hung up and looked at me. "Casey, your grandmother will have whatever she needs. The best service, the best arrangements, the finest flowers in venue. And you won't pay a single cent. I don't want charity. I said, holding on to my self-respect despite my dire financial situation. My grandmother had taught me never to lose my dignity. A small smile touched his lips. The first I'd seen. This isn't charity, Casey. It's respect. Your grandmother raised you alone. Clearly she worked incredibly hard. And now you're alone too, aren't you? He glanced at my belly, but there was no judgment in his gaze. Only concern. I placed my hand protectively over my stomach. Yes. And I'll raise this baby alone too. I can do it. Where's the baby's father? He asked directly, though his tone wasn't intrusive. He genuinely wanted to know. I closed my eyes. This was the same question I asked myself every night. He left when he found out I was pregnant. He said an Omega who was already struggling didn't need another burden. He told me I was ruining my life and he couldn't stay with me. Matthias's jaw tightened, and I could see him grinding his teeth. He was clearly controlling his anger. He was a coward, and not a man at all to run from his responsibilities like that. For the first time, someone had called my ex out, and with such conviction, my heart did a strange little flip. Matthias stood and came around his desk, sitting in the chair across from me, so we were at the same level. Casey, he said, his voice much softer now, almost gentle, I want to make you an offer. Your grandmother's funeral. I'll handle it personally. Every detail will be perfect. And afterward, if you're willing, you can work with me. I can give you a stable life. For you and your baby. I was shocked, questions flooding my mind. Why? You don't even know me. I'm just a stranger you met today. Because, he interrupted softly, I know what it's like to be alone. And I don't want anyone else, especially not a pregnant Omega, to go through the pain I know is unbearable. There was pain in his eyes, an old story he wasn't telling. But I understood in that moment that this offer wasn't just business, it was deeply personal for him. The day of my grandmother's funeral arrived like a heavy nightmare I knew was coming but wasn't prepared for. I stood in my black dress, my pregnant belly now more visible since I was almost 6 months along. And I could hear the whispers, distant but audible, reaching my ears repeatedly. Look, he's pregnant, alone, where's the baby's father? But Matthias had arranged everything so perfectly that I was amazed. White lilies, my grandmother's favorites, were everywhere. Soft classical music played in the background. The venue was so beautiful that I thought my grandmother would have been happy if she could have seen it. Most importantly, Matthias himself was there, by my side, standing to my right like a silent guardian, as if he was with me in this pain. During the ceremony, when the pastor said prayers, I felt Matthias's hand on my shoulder, a light, supportive touch. This was very bold of him publicly, but I needed it at that moment. I didn't want to collapse in front of everyone. After the ceremony, when all the guests, mostly my grandmother's old friends and church members, had left, I stood alone in front of her grave. Fresh earth, white flowers, and a headstone that read Margaret Rivers, beloved grandmother. I thought I was alone until Matthias came back to my side. He hadn't abandoned me, just given me some privacy. You did really well, Casey, he said, his voice low but clear. She would have been proud of you, of your strength. I didn't hold back my tears this time. They flowed freely. I don't know what I'm going to do now, Matthias. I have no one. Just this baby. I touched my belly, and I'm scared. How will I manage? I don't have a proper job, minimal savings, and now— He looked at me, a look that seemed to see right through me. He wasn't seeing my weakness, he was seeing my struggle and understanding it. You're not alone, Casey. I told you my offer still stands. Actually, it's not an offer anymore. I want you to accept it. But I can't be a burden to you, I said, my voice shaking. You already have so many responsibilities. Why would you— Casey, he took my hand. The first time an alpha had touched me without greed, lust, or expectation. There was only warmth. Only care. You're not a burden, you're strong. You might not realize it, but you are. And I want to give you the chance you might never have gotten. I want to give you the safety that's your right. I looked into his eyes. Why was he doing all this? For a stranger? For a pregnant Omega who couldn't do anything for him? But his eyes held only honesty. I can't trust you right now, I said honestly, facing my pain. I need time. Fair enough, he said, and surprisingly, he released my hand but didn't withdraw his warmth. But I'll prove it to you, Casey. One day at a time, until you tell yourself that I was right. that you should be safe with me. The next day, a car arrived outside my temporary apartment. The driver rolled down the window and said, "Mr. Hale sent me. I'm to take you to the office." I was confused. I hadn't officially accepted the job yet, but I got ready partly out of curiosity, partly because interactions with Matthias gave me a strange sense of peace. When I entered the Hale Enterprises building, I felt overwhelmed. Glass exterior, marble lobby, and so many well-dressed people. In my simple clothes, I felt out of place. Matthias's assistant, a professional-looking beta woman named Claire, came to receive me. "Mr. Rivers, welcome. Mr. Hale is waiting for you." She gave me a tour of the building. This wasn't just funeral homes. Hale Enterprises had luxury event management, grief counseling centers, charitable trusts, and even hospice care facilities. Everything was run so professionally that I felt overwhelmed. There was discipline and respect on every floor. All departments work seamlessly together here, Claire explained as we rode the elevator up. Mr. Hale believes that handling grief is an art, and his company shows that sensitivity in every service. Finally, we reached Matthias's main office. He was looking at some files on his desk, but as soon as I entered, he set everything aside and stood up. "Casey," he said my name, and I felt that familiar warmth again. "How did you find the tour?" "Overwhelming," I admitted honestly. "This is all, it's very big." "I want you to work here," Matthias said directly. "No beating around the bush. You have experience coordinating events. I saw it in your resume. Small events, family gatherings, community programs. You have talent." I was shocked. "You did a background check on me." "Obviously," he said casually, as if it were normal. "I don't make decisions blindly, Casey. But the background check confirmed that you're capable." I felt slightly offended but also understood. He was a billionaire, of course. He'd have trust issues. Business involved more logic than emotion. "So, you're hiring me out of pity?" I asked directly, because I needed to know for sure. His jaw tightened and he came around his desk to stand in front of me. "If I hired people out of pity, my company would have gone bankrupt long ago. I'm hiring you because you have talent. Where eye for detail is excellent. Your empathy makes people feel comfortable. And because I want you to be safe. Financially secure." That last part made my heartbeat quicken. "Safe? Is there some threat against me?" I asked, confused. He looked at me, and for the first time I saw something else in his eyes. Possessiveness. "The world is very cruel, Casey. Especially to pregnant omegas who are alone. And I don't want anyone to hurt you. Financially, emotionally, or physically." My first week working was strange. I was in Matthias's company. His presence felt at all times, whether he was physically there or not. People in the office would look at me and whisper. Some said I was Matthias's charity case. Others suggested I was trying to seduce him by taking advantage of my pregnancy. "Look, he's pregnant and working here. Obviously Mr. Hale hired him personally," I overheard two employees saying in the break room one day. "Maybe the baby is actually Mr. Hale's," the other joked, and they both laughed. Hearing this hurt, but I couldn't say anything. I was new here and I didn't want to complicate my position. I just focused on my work, planning events, coordinating with vendors, handling clients with empathy. But Matthias never made me feel unwanted. He personally ensured I had comfortable seating. He'd ordered an ergonomic chair for me, that my diet was proper. Claire delivered healthy meals to me every day at lunch, and that I didn't overwork myself. Even though this seemed unprofessional to others, he didn't care. One day I was working at my desk, finalizing flower arrangements for an upcoming memorial service, when Claire approached. "Mr. Hale is asking for you in his office, Casey." My heart jumped. Had I made a mistake? I checked my files. Everything seemed fine. Still, I walked nervously toward his office. When I entered, he was already standing by the window, looking out at the city. The afternoon sunlight highlighted his silhouette, and his powerful presence was so dominant it took my breath away for a second. "Casey," he said my name without turning around, as if he knew I'd arrived. "Yes, are you happy here?" he asked. Now turning to face me, I told the truth. "I'm adjusting. Hearing people talk, their whispers, their assumptions is difficult. But I'm trying to ignore them, focusing on work." He finally came closer and sat on his desk, arms crossed but posture relaxed. "If anyone disrespects you, tell me directly. I'll handle it personally. This environment should be safe for you, Casey. Mentally and physically." Matthias, why are you doing so much for me? I finally asked the question that had been bothering me all week. I'm just your employee. Why do you? He was quiet for a few seconds, as if deciding whether to answer. His gray eyes searched my green ones. Then he took a deep breath and said, because when I first saw you at the reception desk, alone, pregnant, drowning in grief, you reminded me of my mother. I was shocked. This was personal. Very personal. Your mother? I asked softly, afraid I might be crossing boundaries. She was an omega too, Matthias said, and there was pain in his voice he couldn't hide. And when my father, a powerful alpha, left because he didn't want to handle his responsibilities, society treated my mother exactly like you were treated at that funeral home. Worse, actually. People said she was shameless, that she'd seduced the alpha, that the baby me was a mistake. My eyes filled with tears. This pain I could understand. I was just a child then, only 7 years old. Matthias continued, now looking toward the window as if lost in the past. I couldn't do anything for her. I couldn't protect her when people insulted her, when landlords evicted us, when employers fired her just because she was a single omega. I was just helpless. But now I'm not. He looked at me, determination in his eyes. Now I can do something. And when I saw you, Casey, I decided I would give you the support my mother never got. I would give you the dignity every person deserves. I didn't know what to say. This alpha, this cold, ruthless billionaire who intimidated the world, was so broken inside, so scarred. Where is your mother now? I asked hesitantly. Matthias's expression changed. Sadder, heavier. She passed away when I was 15. Cancer. We couldn't afford treatment at the time, and by the time I grew up and made money, it was too late. I'm so sorry, I whispered, and this wasn't just formality. I truly felt his pain. Don't be, he said, but softly. She made me strong. She taught me that no matter how cruel the world is, we don't lose our dignity. And she made me promise that when I gained power, I'd use it to help others. That's why I have grief counseling centers, charitable trusts. That's why I'm helping you. From that day, my dynamic with Matthias began to change. He wasn't just my boss anymore. He was becoming something else. And I wasn't seeing him as just my benefactor. Feelings were developing inside me, dangerous, complicated feelings I tried to deny because I was pregnant, vulnerable, and definitely not ready. 2 weeks later, one evening I was working late because a high-profile memorial service was happening the next day, and I was finalizing all arrangements. The office was almost empty, just security and maintenance staff. I was sitting at my desk checking vendor confirmations, when I felt a sharp pain in my belly, intense, shooting pain I'd never experienced before. I gasped and grabbed the armrest of my chair, trying to breathe through the pain. My hand automatically went to my belly. Protective. Casey? Matthias's voice came. He was still in the office, probably working late in his cabin. He must have heard me. I'm fine. I tried to sound normal, but my face had gone pale and sweat beaded on my forehead. He came to me quickly, urgently, and saw my condition. His eyes went to my face, then to my belly that I was trying to protect. You're not fine. I'm taking you to the hospital. Right now. No, it's just, maybe the baby kicked harder than usual. Casey, don't argue, he said in a commanding tone. I knew couldn't be ignored. Then he did something I didn't expect. He literally picked me up in his arms, one arm under my back, the other under my legs. My breath caught, his warmth, his scent, cedarwood and something dark and earthy overwhelmed me. I'd never been this close to an alpha, especially not like this, especially not with such. Matthias, I can walk. Quiet, he said, but softly, almost gently. Let me take care of you, Casey. Please. That please broke and mended my heart at the same time. At the hospital, the doctor checked me, tests, ultrasound, monitoring. I was nervous, scared that something had happened to the baby. Matthias stayed by my side, holding my hand, giving silent support. When the doctor returned with results, I held my breath. It's a false alarm, the doctor said with a smile. The baby is perfectly fine. These were Braxton Hicks contractions, practice contractions that are normal during pregnancy and can be triggered by stress. You shouldn't take too much stress, Mr. Rivers. Rest is essential. Relief overwhelmed me. I closed my eyes and silently thanked God. How much rest does Casey need? Matthias asked the doctor, his tone serious. At least 2 days of complete bed rest. And even after that, avoid heavy work. This stage of pregnancy is delicate, the doctor explained. Matthias nodded, then looked at me. You're coming with me. What? I was confused. To my home? The penthouse. You need proper rest and monitoring. I can't let you go back alone to that temporary apartment where no one will take care of you. Matthias, this isn't appropriate, I protested, even though my heart said something completely different. Part of me wanted to say yes, but my rational mind said this was wrong. I don't care about appropriate, he declared, standing up and pushing my wheelchair. I care about your safety, Casey. Yours and your baby's. After being discharged from the hospital, Matthias put me in his car, a sleek black Mercedes, and we headed to his penthouse. During the entire drive, I remained quiet. A storm of thoughts in my mind. This was all happening so fast and I was becoming so dependent on this alpha. When we arrived at his building, a luxury high-rise in the heart of downtown, I felt completely overwhelmed. The doorman greeted us respectfully, and the elevator was private, opening directly into his penthouse. As the doors slid open, I stood frozen in astonishment. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the entire city sprawling below us, twinkling with countless lights. The modern furniture was both elegant and inviting, the open-plan layout creating a sense of space I'd never experienced. Everything was immaculately clean and organized. This place was so luxurious that I felt uncomfortable in my simple, worn clothes. The guest bedroom is over there. Matthias pointed down a hallway. You have an attached bathroom, and if you need anything at all, just tell me. I want you to feel comfortable here, Casey. I stood in his living room, uncertain and hesitant. Matthias, I'm honestly fine now. The doctor said it was a false alarm. I can go back to my apartment tomorrow. You're staying here, he interrupted, though his tone remained gentle. At least for 2 days, just like the doctor ordered. And if you're comfortable, even after that. Permanently. My voice came out barely above a whisper. He looked at me and that intense gaze returned to his eyes. Yes. I want you safe and taken care of. And I honestly don't want you far away from me, Casey. That closeness, that vulnerability he was showing, made my heartbeat accelerate again. I was pregnant, vulnerable, still grieving, and this alpha stood so near that I could hear his heartbeat matching mine. Why? I whispered. Why do you care so much, Matthias? I don't understand. You could have anyone. Any alpha, omega, or beta would want to be with you. So why me? Why a broken, pregnant omega with no clear future? He took a step closer and now we were very near each other. He cupped my face in his hands, gently, carefully, as if I were something precious that might shatter. Because since I met you, Casey, I can't think about anything else. You're in my mind constantly. Your safety, your smile when you get lost in your work and that small grin appears. Your pain, your struggle, everything. And I don't want this feeling to go away. I was stunned. Was this a confession? Matthias, I'm pregnant, I reminded him, forcing myself to face reality and my deepest insecurities. With someone else's child. I'm not the perfect partner for you. I'm damaged. I don't care. He cut me off, his voice firm yet deeply emotional. That baby is yours, and if you're with me, then the baby is mine too. I want to protect you, Casey. Always. Both you and your child. Tears filled my eyes. Someone was accepting me. With all my flaws, my past, my baby who belonged to someone else. I can't love you right now, I said honestly, my voice shaking. I'm still broken inside. My grandmother's death, my ex who abandoned me, this pregnancy I never planned. I'm still processing all of it. I'll wait, Matthias said, his forehead touching mine. This intimacy overwhelmed me. But I wanted it. However long it takes, Casey. I just want to be near you. To keep you safe. That's all. That night I slept in Matthias's guest room, on a king-sized bed that felt like sleeping on clouds, with clean sheets that smelled faintly of lavender. For the first time in months, I slept safely, peacefully, because I knew that if I needed anything, Matthias was just in the next room. Over the following weeks, Matthias and I fell into an unspoken rhythm. Mornings he'd make breakfast, simple but healthy meals like oatmeal with fresh fruit or whole wheat toast. And we'd eat together, either comfortable silence or light conversation. At the office he treated me professionally. In meetings and work decisions I was simply another employee. But afterward he became my caretaker. We'd have dinner together, sometimes he'd cook, Other times we'd order in. Late-night conversations became our routine as we sat in the living room watching the city lights, talking about life, dreams, and fears. He accompanied me to every ultrasound appointment. And whenever we heard the baby's heartbeat on the monitor, a strange emotion would fill his eyes. "Listen to this," I said during one appointment when the baby kicked. I took Matthias's hand and placed it on my belly. "Feel that." He felt it, the baby's movement, and the expression that crossed his face was pure wonder. "This is real," he whispered. "Yes," I smiled. "It's real." All of this felt like a relationship, yet we never labeled it. I was afraid, terrified that I'd break again, scared that this was all temporary, that one day Matthias would realize how complicated everything was and leave me. One night, after dinner at the penthouse, while we sat on the sofa, I finally decided I needed to express my feelings and fears. "Matthias, I'm afraid of you," I admitted, holding my tea mug and drawing comfort from its warmth. He looked at me, immediately concerned. "Of me? Did I do something wrong? If I made you uncomfortable—" "No," I quickly interrupted. "You haven't done anything wrong. Actually, you're doing everything right. And that's the problem." He looked confused. I took a deep breath. "I'm afraid of getting attached to you. Just when this all ends, when you realize how complicated I am, that I'm not right for you, I'll be alone again, and I don't know if I can handle that pain again. Matthias. I just don't know." Matthias set his mug on the side table and took my hand firmly, warmly. "Casey, this won't end. I will never leave you. Why can't you understand that?" "Because I'm just a broken omega," I shouted, emotions overflowing that I'd been holding back for weeks. "I'm nothing, Matthias. You have everything: power, money, looks, status, options. You could have anyone who's perfect for you. Beautiful, successful, unburdened. So why me? Why an omega who's pregnant with another man's child, who's financially dependent, who's an emotional disaster?" Matthias pulled me into his arms, tightly, desperately, as if he'd never let me go. "Because you're not nothing, Casey. You're everything. Your strength in holding yourself together. Your kindness in how you treat clients with empathy. Your fight in never giving up, all of that attracts me. And yes, I could have anyone. But I only want you." I cried in his arms. Finally, freely. All the suppressed emotions, all the fears came pouring out, and Matthias held me, comforted me, as if he'd always been there for me. The weeks turned into months. My belly grew more prominent. I was nearly full term now. Matthias was no longer just my boss or protector. He'd become my partner in every sense, emotionally and practically. He'd asked me 2 months earlier to officially start a relationship over a simple dinner at home where he'd lit candles and made my favorite pasta. "Casey, I know this is complicated, but I want you officially. I want to be yours and I want you to be mine. Will you give me that chance?" I'd said yes, because by then I trusted him. I loved him. The feeling had developed slowly, in small moments, late-night conversations, his constant care, and now I could confidently say that yes, I loved Matthias. Today was my delivery date. Actually, technically, I was 1 day past my due date. In the hospital room, I felt nervous and scared. Labor pains had started early that morning, and now the contractions were regular and intense. But Matthias held my hand so firmly that I felt like I could do anything. "You're doing great, Casey," he told me as the contractions intensified, when I was almost screaming from the pain. "Just a little more. You're so strong. I'm right here with you." After hours of exhausting labor, painful hours when I thought I couldn't continue, finally, a loud cry. "My baby." The doctor brought him to me, still covered in vernix, crying loudly, alive and healthy. "It's a boy," the doctor said, smiling. "Congratulations." I looked at my son, my everything. So small, so perfect, so alive. The tears wouldn't stop. This was real. I'd become a father. Matthias kissed my forehead softly, lovingly. "You were so brave, Casey. I love you so much." "Me too," I said, looking into his emotional eyes. "I love you too, Matthias." He took the baby in his arms carefully, lovingly, as if the child were truly his own. And in that moment I knew he was. Not biologically, but in every other way that mattered. This baby was Matthias's too. "What should we name him?" he asked, gently rocking the baby. I thought about the 2 people who were most important in my life. Noah Hale. Matthias looked shocked, his eyes meeting mine. "Hale? But Casey, you're his family, I said firmly. You always have been. Biologically he might not be yours, but in every other sense you're his father, and I want him to have your name. If you'll allow it. Tears came to Matthias's eyes. The first time I'd seen him openly cry. I'll make him my son, Casey. Legally, officially, I'll start the adoption process. If you'll let me. I want that, I said firmly and emotionally. I want that very much. Months passed. Noah grew 2 months old now with chubby cheeks and he'd started smiling. Matthias proposed to me. It was simple, private, and perfect. We were at home, Noah sleeping in his crib. Matthias and I stood on the balcony, watching the city lights in comfortable silence. Then suddenly, Matthias took my hand and pulled out a small velvet box. Casey, he said, and I could hear nervousness in his voice. The first time I'd ever seen him nervous. I know this might seem fast, but I don't want to wait. I want to make you mine legally, officially. I want to give you my name, you and Noah both. Will you marry me? I said yes without thinking, because this wasn't something to think about. It was something to feel. And I felt that this was right. The wedding was small and intimate. Just a few close friends and colleagues. Claire cried happy tears throughout the ceremony. When Matthias slipped the ring on my finger, I felt a completeness I'd never experienced before. Our honeymoon was brief. Just a weekend getaway to a quiet cabin in the mountains. Because we didn't want to leave Noah for long. But those 2 days were magical. We talked about our future, our dreams, what kind of parents we wanted to be. I never imagined I'd have this, Matthias confessed one evening as we sat by the fireplace. A family, someone who loves me not for my money or status, but just for me. I never imagined someone would love me despite everything, I replied. Despite being broken, pregnant, lost. You were never broken, he said, pulling me closer. You were just healing. And I'm honored I got to be part of that journey. When we returned home, Noah had grown even in those 2 days, or maybe we just missed him so much that he seemed different. Matthias picked him up from Claire, who'd been watching him, and held him. Did you miss your dads? He whispered to Noah, who cooed in response. Your dads. The words made my heart swell. Life settled into a new normal. Matthias continued running his empire, but he delegated more responsibilities so he could spend time with us. I'd gone back to work part-time, handling smaller projects from home. Noah was the center of our world. One night, when Noah was 4 months old and sleeping peacefully in his nursery, Matthias and I sat in our bedroom talking. Do you ever regret it? I asked him. Taking on someone else's child, all this responsibility? He looked at me seriously. Casey, Noah isn't someone else's child. He's our son. Biology doesn't make a father, love does. Commitment does. Showing up every day does. And I plan to show up every single day for the rest of my life. What about more children? I asked tentatively. Would you want them? His eyes lit up. With you? Absolutely. When you're ready, if you're ready. I'd love to expand our family. The thought filled me with unexpected joy. A year ago I'd been alone, pregnant, and terrified. Now I had a husband who loved me. A son who was thriving, and the possibility of more children in our future. I think I'd like that, I said softly. In a year or two, when Noah's older, I'd like to give him siblings. Matthias kissed me then, deep and meaningful, full of promise and love. The adoption papers came through when Noah was 6 months old. The judge signed the documents making Matthias legally Noah's father. We celebrated quietly at home, just the 3 of us, but it felt monumental. Now it's official, Matthias said, holding the papers. Now everyone knows what I've always felt, that he's mine. I watched him with Noah, saw how gentle he was, how patient, how devoted. This was the man who the business world feared, who made ruthless decisions without blinking, yet he melted completely for our son. Thank you, I told him that night. For what? For saving me, for loving me, for giving us this life. He shook his head. You saved yourself, Casey. You're the strongest person I know. I just got lucky enough to be here to witness it. Noah's first birthday arrived faster than I could have imagined. We threw a small party, just close friends, Claire and her family, and a few colleagues from Hale Enterprises who'd become genuine friends. The house was decorated with balloons and streamers, and Noah sat in his high chair wearing a tiny birthday hat, completely fascinated by his smash cake. He has no idea what to do with it, I laughed as Noah poked the frosting with one finger, then looked at it in confusion. Let me help, Matthias said, dipping his finger in the frosting and putting a tiny bit on Noah's lips. Our son's eyes widened. Then he grinned and reached for more. You've created a monster, I teased as Noah grabbed handfuls of cake and smeared it everywhere. His face, his hair, the high chair tray. A happy monster, Matthias corrected, taking photo after photo. These moments are priceless. Later, after the guests had left and Noah was bathed and sleeping soundly, Matthias and I cleaned up together. 1 year ago, I was in the hospital holding him for the first time, I said, wiping down the kitchen counter. I was terrified. I had no idea how I'd manage. And look at you now, Matthias said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. You're an amazing father. Noah is lucky to have you. He's lucky to have both of us, I corrected. We stood there in comfortable silence for a moment before Matthias spoke again. I have something to tell you. My heart skipped. His tone was serious. What is it? I've been thinking about retiring. Not completely, but stepping back significantly. I want to spend more time with you and Noah. I want to be present for everything. First words, first steps, all of it. I turned to face him. Are you sure? Your company means everything to you. No, he said firmly. You and Noah mean everything to me. The company is just a company. It'll run fine with the team I've built. But I can't get back these years with our son. I won't miss them. Tears filled my eyes. You'd really do that? I already did, he admitted. I've been transitioning responsibilities for the past month. By next quarter, I'll only be working part-time as a consultant. I hugged him tightly, overwhelmed by his dedication to our family. The seasons changed. Noah started walking, then running everywhere on his chubby toddler legs. His first word was Dada, though he seemed to use it for both of us interchangeably, which made us laugh. Dada, he'd shout, pointing at Matthias. Yes, buddy, Matthias would respond. Dada, Noah would then point at me. I'm here too, I'd say, scooping him up. It was chaotic and messy and absolutely perfect. One evening, when Noah was 18 months old and finally asleep after a particularly energetic day, I brought up the topic we discussed before. I think I'm ready, I told Matthias as we relaxed on the couch. Ready for what? He asked, though I could see understanding dawning in his eyes. For another baby. I want to give Noah a sibling. Matthias's face lit up with joy. Are you certain? There's no rush, Casey. We have all the time in the world. I'm certain, I said. I want our family to grow. And this time I won't be doing it alone. This time I'll have you with me from the very beginning. He pulled me close and kissed me. Then let's make it happen. The journey to our second child was different from my first pregnancy. This time I had support, security, and love surrounding me. This time, Matthias was there for every doctor's appointment, every milestone, every moment of morning sickness. You're glowing, he'd tell me when I felt like a beached whale. I'm enormous, I'd correct. Enormously beautiful, he'd insist, making me laugh despite my discomfort. When our daughter was born, a healthy, loud baby girl with a full head of dark hair, I watched Matthias hold her for the first time and saw tears streaming down his face. She's perfect, he whispered. Absolutely perfect. What should we name her? I asked. He looked at me with such love. What about Margaret? After your grandmother? My breath caught. Really? She raised an incredible man, he said. She deserves to be remembered. Margaret Hale. Maggie for short, I added, my voice thick with emotion. Maggie, he agreed, kissing our daughter's forehead. Noah adjusted to being a big brother with surprising ease. At 2 years old, he was gentle with his baby sister, always wanting to help. Baby, he'd say, pointing at Maggie. Our baby, I'd correct gently. You're her big brother. Brother, he'd repeat proudly. Watching my family grow and thrive, I sometimes had to pinch myself. Was this really my life? The broken, pregnant Omega who'd stood in that funeral home, alone and desperate, had become this: a husband, a father of 2, someone cherished and loved. One night after getting both children to sleep, a feat that required teamwork and patience, Matthias and I collapsed on our bed, exhausted but content. 2 kids, I said, staring at the ceiling. We have 2 kids. We're outnumbered, Matthias joked. Are you happy? I asked, turning to look at him. He met my eyes, and I saw nothing but honesty there. Casey, I've never been happier in my entire life. You and our children are everything I never knew I needed. I love you, I told him. I don't say it enough, but I do. So much. I know, he said, pulling me close. And I love you too. Always have, always will. Years passed in a blur of birthday parties, scraped knees, bedtime stories, and family dinners. Noah started kindergarten, then first grade. Maggie grew into a talkative, curious toddler who asked endless questions about everything. On our 5th wedding anniversary, Matthias surprised me with a weekend away. Just the two of us while Claire and her family watched the kids. I can't remember the last time we were alone, I admitted as we drove to a luxury resort in wine country. Too long, he agreed. I wanted to remind you that you're not just a dad. You're also my husband, my partner, my everything. That weekend, we reconnected as a couple, not just as parents. We talked about our dreams, our fears, our hopes for the future. We made love without worrying about being interrupted by crying children. We slept in late and had leisurely breakfasts in bed. We should do this more often, I said on our last morning there. Agreed, Matthias said. Our kids are important, but so is our relationship. We can't pour from an empty cup. When we returned home, Noah and Maggie rushed to greet us, both talking over each other about everything they'd done. We missed you, Noah declared. Missed you so much, Maggie echoed. I looked at Matthias over their heads, and we shared a smile. This was our life, chaotic, loud, messy, and absolutely beautiful. Welcome home, Claire said from the doorway, smiling at our reunion. It's good to be home, I replied, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. This was home. This was family. This was everything.